Hey guys, welcome. We are also streaming live on Facebook. So I'm just going to give everybody a few more minutes to come in. If you're like me, today was crazy. Hence why I look like this. I have not had time to even get dressed, make myself look decent today. So y'all are getting me in my full natural. This is how I look every day, remote working looking. So, but we're going to rock out regardless. So welcome you guys. We will get started here in a little bit. Can you believe that I got it? Better believe that I'm floating. Yeah, yeah. I know you feel this heat coming in high, 100 degrees. Can you believe that I got it? Better believe that I'm floating. Yeah, yeah. Big dog, who you calling bitches? Rushed in like it's college scrimmage. 6 feet, tell me what's the limit? You better fall down to a goddess image. Nuh-uh, no, you're not gonna try to swallow my shine. Nuh-uh, no, you're not about to tell me what these are mine. Nuh-uh, play your part, little one, did not cross the line. Nuh-uh, feel the I'm in the front, you're wasting my time. What a shame, little bit of bitch. Couldn't stand to be out, man, so you threw a fit. You know I could've helped you just a little bit. Should've known better, man, you were full of shit. Now I'm done with it, look at what you missed. Jeez, look at the cheese, look at the ice, look at the frizz. Yeah, look at me, can you believe that I got it? Better believe that I'm floating, yeah, yeah. I know you feel this heat coming in high, 100 degrees. Can you believe that I got it? Better believe that I'm floating. Give them 2 more minutes. We're going to get started at like 5:03.
And slay, you better slay. I know you're tired of the same old lies, barely can sleep at night. Girl, I know it's hard sometimes just to slay, but you better slay. Slay, slay for them dollars like your rent is due. Slay like a boss, make them work for you. Slay to the maxes, all want you back. Confident. Hey girl, you better slay, slay. Hey girl, you better slay, slay. All day, all day, all day, slay. Hey girl, you better slay, slay. How many times did you get?
All right. No, I said 5:03, but it seems like the joining is slowing down a little bit. So welcome all of you. If this is your first masterclass or your first one of my masterclasses that you've attended, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are super excited to have you all. If you are streaming on Facebook, hello, welcome. I'm Andrea. I'm one of the masterclass instructors. And today we are going to talk about how to CYA at work. Don't really know what you guys are expecting, but the purpose of this conversation is just to reiterate a lot of things that all of us should always be doing proactively. To ensure that as things happen at work, we're able to make sure that we're covered. A lot of times what I've seen in my career is that folks know to do this, but they do it retroactively. They do it reactively, right? So something is happening and then they want to, I think somebody's out to get me. And then they want to start doing these tips and practices when it's like, you've missed all of what you could have done. You've missed a ton of justification. You've missed a ton of documentation opportunities, and then also self-development as well, because
sometimes CYA at work is not always about trying to make sure that you're careful so in case something bad happens, but it's also to make sure that you are taking ownership of your own development. Too many times as professionals, we allow for our supervisors and other folks to dictate, what we do, how we progress within our fields or within our companies. And, my biggest thing to folks is always, you should be proactively doing a lot of these things, not waiting until something bad happens. So that's the approach we will take today. In true fashion, I will probably talk all the way up until the 6 o'clock mark. So we usually try to do a 45-minute presentation and leave room for Q&A. I like to do Q&A as we go. So if you are on if you're on Zoom, feel free to drop a Q&A either in the Q&A box and then go ahead and engage via the chat. If you are on Facebook, you can drop your questions there, and then the Black and HR team will be monitoring those and then feeding those questions to me. If there's a question that comes about that I'm not able to get to within this class in the Facebook comments, then I'll make sure to check the link afterward and then reply to anything that's left open at that time. Again, if you are new, welcome. Normally, I don't look like this. I'm gonna let y'all know right now. It has been a day. It has been a day. I have not had time to get up and, they record these. So I try to make sure that I look recording ready, but today y'all just gonna get the real me's. All right, so we are going to jump right in. Keep in mind, if you are not an elite member, if you sign up for elite membership, you do get these training sessions for free. And also each session comes with a 1-pager in your elite member dashboard, as well as your SHRM recertification credit. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to email the admin team at admin@blackandhr.com, at theblackandhr.com, and we will go ahead and jump right in. So some of the things we're going to talk about today are effective note-taking, managing up, email etiquette, and then also dealing with interpersonal conflict. And we've discussed some of these things from a different perspective. We've discussed some of these things from a performance management perspective, from a feedback perspective, but this time we're going to discuss them from, again, a way of you being able to be proactive and then also take control of your own development as you progress throughout your career. All righty. So when we talk about note-taking can cover your ass in a couple different ways, right? One, it provides a record. Providing a record, when you take notes, you create a record of what was discussed or decided upon. This can be valuable if there's ever a dispute or if there's some type of confusion, or even if someone questions your decision-making or an action that was taken. You can always refer back to that note to confirm what was said, who said it, what was agreed upon, etc. I think where a lot of people falter when it comes to taking notes, one, they either try to take too much, right? They just try to, they don't know where to start, or they're just like documenting everything that's unnecessary. I'm not saying you should be documenting everything in the meetings, but you should definitely be documenting important details. Who said that or who put that narrative or initiative out, and especially things that can otherwise be forgotten. Oftentimes you're in team meetings or you're in one-on-ones or you're in meetings about different projects, and there's so much being thrown at you at one time that there are sometimes important details that may get forgotten or pushed to a different, the back of your mind while you're addressing other things. This can especially be helpful if any of you are in HRBP roles, where you spend your day talking from client to client, department to department, employee complaint this, I need a budget for this, etc. Being able to take notes for under each particular circumstance is definitely going to help you retain some of that information and then create a log for you to always go back. So you can always go back and refer to them and refresh them in your memory. One thing that a best practice for myself is that depending on what I'm doing, I have different notebooks for different things. So in a lot of my roles, they've been multifaceted. They've had things from as far as strategy, conversations, to workforce reduction, layoffs, to employee relations, to staffing and comp planning and all these different things, right? And so when I first started out in my career, I just used to, carry like everybody else, carry either one notebook or a binder or whatever. And I would keep everything in that one. And what ended up happening is that when something was like, oh shit, something hit the fan, I need to go back and find it. I'm having to like search through all these different things. So now I have different notebooks for different things. I lead DE&I at my job. I have a notebook that's specifically dedicated to all DE&I meetings, notes, etc. I have one that's separately dedicated to all employee relations and things like that. So if something comes up, I know exactly where to go to find that information. A lot of people also like to document online or keep their notes within like a Google Cloud or things like that, which is fine. You have to choose what's best for you. I like to write, because when I write, I retain information better. And then I often then go back and I type up notes, and I have different folders in my Google Drive, and everything is kind of OCD, but I like to keep notes, especially about important details, in more than one location, just in case I don't have my notebook on me. I can just log on. I can access the cloud through my phone, through the computer. I travel a lot for work. And so being able to have detailed notes, but also that are readily and easily accessible, is something that's been able to really help me. I'm in sports. And I work for the Women's Soccer League, the National Women's Soccer League. And I was literally on vacation last week, and the commissioner sent me a random note at like 8 p.m. for an update that she needed that was very pressing for our board of governors. And, I'm at we all know when you get to a certain level, you can't be like, I'm off, right? Depending on what they asking for. But because I did have detailed notes, and because I did have it logged in the cloud, I was able to log into my phone really quick, find exactly what I needed to get to her and send it to her. Now, one may say, well, you were off work or it was after hours. We all also know that salary means it's never really after hours. And then depending on the industry, depending on how visible your job is, you have to be able to navigate and move things through fairly quickly and respond very rapidly. So that's just my personal thing. That's not like an HR best practice thing or like a SHRM recommendation, but what I would recommend is that you have your notes in multiple places and that they're easily accessible. Taking notes also demonstrates diligence. By taking notes, you demonstrate that, one, you're not only diligent, but you're responsible for whatever information it is that you're taking in. And it shows that you really take your work seriously. It shows that you don't play no games. And it shows that you are committed to getting things done the right way. For me, it also serves as a way for me to be like, that's not what we discussed, or nope, this is the date that we actually talked about. And, I wouldn't say I've had to do that a lot in my career, but there was one job in particular. It's also a sports company, and it's, they employ LeBron James, so we'll just say that. And there were times where I would have to go to bat with SVPs, with lawyers, whoever, and they'd be like, oh, well, this is what we discussed. And I'd just say, no, that's not what we discussed. And I'd have to hit them with the date and the time. I was notorious for my emails. That was a different time. I don't choose violence like that anymore. I don't have to. But back then, I used to go in because I had very, very detailed notes, and I cover my ass in more ways than one, because that company is also very, there's a lot of nepotism, there's a lot of favoritism, and people be there for a long time. So it's a lot of my word against your word, and whoever has the most clout or whoever's been there and has the biggest network. Typically people will take what they say over what you say, right? And so it was one incident in particular that I was like, I've had enough, and I didn't agree with a particular hiring practice, and I filed a complaint that went all the way up to Adam Silver. Of course, when it came back, the hiring manager was like, oh, no, we never said that. And I had to, yes, you did. On this day, this is what you said. This is who was present. I also followed up with emails that I had PDF, so nobody could adjust it, anything like that. Again, I was being proactive, because in the time that I was taking all these notes and documenting all these things, nothing had happened. I didn't even know I was going to end up filing a complaint. But once I got to that stage, because I had already done all of this, I was able to protect my job, because 9 times out of 10, he would have got my ass fired. But he couldn't, because I had good notes, okay? So if there's ever a question about whether you did something, did your job correctly or incorrectly, having those detailed notes can absolutely support your case. And I understand that y'all may be saying like, this is basic, right? We all take notes, but sometimes we take notes about the wrong stuff. So this is just a reminder that as you're sitting in team meetings, as you're talking with your manager, whether it's a one-on-one, whether it's a complaint, regardless of what it is, make sure you're taking very detailed notes in, whatever your format is, so that if something happens, you can always go back and look at those. And then, of course, it helps you remember important details, like I said. So we go through a lot. A lot of us are working professionals. You guys, some people have families, husbands, a lot of different responsibilities outside of work. And sometimes if you just flip that switch to switch into personal life, you forget some things that even if you just met or had a discussion about. And then when it comes back around later on, you're like, oh, damn, like what am I supposed to do? Or, you're caught. So definitely really, really get in the habit of taking good notes. So it's like, okay, what are some note-taking tips that has really, really helped me? advance in my career, you definitely want to be organized. You got to figure out your own system. Some people know shorthand, some people just do bullets, this and that. Some people, like I said, I do paper, some people do computer. I wouldn't recommend doing recordings. I mean, look, I know some states are one-party authorization states, but your coworkers might start treating you a little weird if they find out you recording meetings and stuff without them knowing. So I wouldn't recommend that. If that's the way that you process or learn best, I am all about inclusivity, but definitely common courtesy, let your coworkers know if that's something that you would like to do, even if it's just at the start of that meeting. But before you start taking notes, you also want to make sure you have a clear understanding of what you want these notes to achieve and why you're taking them. And so that's really big because, as I mentioned before, sometimes you're taking notes that don't even matter. You writing down stuff that people say that is not applicable to your job, the project that you're working on. You're just taking notes because everybody else in the meeting taking notes and it looks like you need to be taking notes, right? So before you go into that meeting, already ideated within your head, what do I need to make sure that I have documented when I leave this meeting? Is it deadlines? Is it, deliverables? Is it, any type of action that I need to take? Is it a CYA? Am I trying to get somebody caught up and I need them to admit something that they didn't did, or just try to find some type of way to secure myself? You want to make sure, and then also you can even create a template. I do that when I'm going into my one-on-ones or my team meetings. If I know there are certain things I'm going to hit going into that meeting, I'll go ahead and create an outline so that I can also organize my thoughts, but then so that my notes are already organized in a logical way, so that when I need to go back and then either transition them to a cloud or be able to highlight or just be able to go back to exactly what I need to know, they're right there, right? So you develop your own system, whether that's bullet points, headings, subheadings, whatever is best for you to make sure that you're organized and ready so that you can also listen and retain while you're taking those notes. You also want to be very concise. Again, one of the most important aspects of note taking is being able to capture information very quickly and accurately in real time, right? So you can't keep telling people to repeat this, repeat that because you're trying to take notes. It don't work that way. So that's why I say you got to come up with a system that works for you. You can't write down every single word. You can't write down every single process or every single piece of the conversation. So you definitely want to make sure you're capturing the main points and the key takeaways. And the way to ensure you're doing that is to make sure that you're going into that conversation already knowing what you're going to be listening for. You can also use shorthand abbreviations. I do that all the time. Probably not abbreviations anybody else to understand what they say, but they work for me. I know exactly what they mean. I know how to interpret them, and that's that. So, instead of writing out, for example, a basic one, instead of trying to write out approximately, you put APPROX. I probably just put APPR or something like that. Like literally my shorthand makes absolutely no sense. But when I'm writing fast and I'm trying to still remain engaged in the conversation, you have to figure out tricks that work for you. And then, of course, you always want to review and revise notes, especially if you're coming out of a team meeting, if it's a meeting that with some major decisions made or a lot of things are going to fall on you or some deliverables or anything, you want to make sure you review them to make sure that you've captured everything accurately. There are times you're writing so fast you're going, or you could be in mid-thought, you could be, mid-writing, start talking, and then you can't go back, you never go back and finish that thought. And so there may be some gaps that you missed. So you want to go back and review before it's too late so that you can then go back and talk to whoever it is to make sure you have the right information and to make sure you can understand and retain that information if it's needed. So again, I think note-taking is something that everybody probably just does on a day-to-day basis within their roles. This is just a call out to make sure that you're documenting the right things. I often get calls from like friends and family members that are going through situations at work. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you have documented? They was like, oh, well, in some meeting this happened and they said this, I can't recall. Well, what you want me to do with that? You ain't got no date. You can't say who was present. You can't say this. I have one person tell me, oh, I'm in an HR investigation because they said this in this meeting, and this person was present, and I had this date and I had this. Now you're giving me something I can work with. So now I can accurately advise you on what your next step should be. But a lot of times we're not thinking with that lens. And here's the thing, at the end of the day, y'all, we Black. Most of us are Black. I don't know, maybe some people on Facebook aren't here that ain't Black, but for the most part, we Black, right? And so we are in the middle of mass layoffs, a potential economic crisis. We are in a space where There is legislation and things being passed left and right to remove what they consider is privilege for us, the irony. So we got to start doing more, right? It's unfair. It's not anything that we should have to do. But when you start to see the writings on the wall and you see what's happening in not only our respective states, but also just the country in general, we got to start taking an extra step, because unfortunately we are Black, and there are some people probably on this call or on Facebook that got their job because you was Black. And you know what? That's absolutely fine. I am 100% okay with being a token. If you gonna hire me because I'm Black or because I'm a Black woman and you need to check this box and you're gonna pay me my coins, that's fine. But I also need to know that I'm going to make sure that I stay on top of everything in CYA, because I'm not going to give you a reason to fire me, because I know that I'm the token. Okay. So another rant or like a little side tangent I went on, but in taking notes and making sure that you're taking it from the lens of making sure you're protecting yourself at all costs is something that everyone should get in the habit of doing. And, you know, you don't have to be perfect at it. It gets tough. You may let your guard down and be like, I don't need to take notes for this, whatever, but always take a mental note, because you never know, some of them folks at work that you think is your friends be the first one to turn on you when stuff get tough, okay? So again, all external factors, taking great detailed notes will definitely help combat that as we're entering this season of uncertainty. Another best practice is managing up. And I think managing up is something that people often misuse or don't really understand the purpose of it. The goal of managing up is not to get your manager caught up, is not to feel like I've had people say, I shouldn't have to manage up because they getting paid to be the manager. Well, okay, stick with that mindset. And we all know there's bad people leaders in general, right? Now, you not managing up and you see things that need to be happening and you're not speaking up, or you're not figuring out ways and solutions to make things happen. When the ball get dropped, ain't nobody gonna fire the managers just because they was a bad people leader. They're gonna fire you because you knew what your deliverables were from the beginning, or you knew what you needed to do. So when you're managing up, you're really establishing a mutual beneficial working relationship where you can collaborate effectively, where you can identify and address potential problems as they arise, and then ultimately achieve better outcomes for the organization, which then in turn will help CYA and protect your job. Managing up typically involves strategies such as proactive communication, being responsive to your supervisor's needs, seeking feedback and guidance proactively, so not waiting for them to come to you. A lot of us work in large, well, I don't anymore, but I've worked in large organizations where my leader may have 4 or 5 direct reports, but maybe leading a team of 30, right? It may be so much going on, and you're looking at it as in, this is me, this is my development. You should be proactively coming to me and giving me feedback and making sure that I succeed. And while that is true and necessary, and I'm not negating that, at the end of the day are you going to let that dictate what you do? If they're not being proactive in their communication with you about your development, are you just going to sit back and wait? Or are you going to say, you know what, my manager got a lot going on. I need to make sure that I'm on the right track. So let me proactively reach out to them. It helps you understand their management style and preferences, and you're able to do things before they think about it. So for example, if I have a manager that I know is, I had a former manager where he would want us to pull the reports, and okay, I had 2, this is a great story. So I was supporting 2 presidents. One would like you to pull raw data, whether it's DEI data, performance data, comp data, whatever the case may be. He likes you to pull the raw data and send it to him raw, right? Just send him the raw data. He'll come up with everything that he needs to, all of his insights. And then when you meet, you'll discuss it together. The other president was the exact opposite. He wanted me to pull all the data. He wanted me to formulate my opinions, formulate the insights, and give him the high level of everything that he needed to know. So me understanding that and being able to manage up, then I'm able to give each person what they need when they need, and able to do it proactively before they have to turn around and come back and ask me. And then it also helped me be able to advocate for myself and provide updates, work progress, build strong working relationships, et cetera. And again, people think, oh, I don't have to manage my manager. Look, how many of us know sometimes we have to parent our parent, right? Sometimes me and my sisters, we look at each other, we be like, how did they raise us? Like, how did we become the parents at this stage? Because the manager stay mad, right? It's the same thing at work. Sometimes you just got to step up and manage your folks. There are people that are legacy people. We all know people that get promoted just because they've been there for forever, not because they deserve it or not because they're a good leader. And so it's not always an opportunity for you to just switch leaders, right? There's not people like, oh, well, I need a new boss because they're a bad leader. Well, what if there ain't nobody else there to lead you, right? How do you then still take things into your own hands and make sure that you're still tracking and you're still getting progress or progressing within your role? And the answer to that is by being proactive and managing up. So to effectively manage up, you're going to need to build a good relationship with your manager. A good relationship that's built on trust, is built on mutual respect, and a relationship that's built on trust and mutual respect is absolutely essential in managing up effectively. If you ain't got that, it ain't gonna work, right? So you can't just come into a new job and just come off, come through hot and start trying to tell your manager how things gonna work. No, you build that relationship, you learn, you see how they work, and then you're like, okay, now I can make an effort to really understand their communication style, their preferences, their goals, and then sometimes you just got to play into their ego, right? Like if I know that this deliverable I put together is the shit, and I know that they ain't gonna have none of, I still send it to them, be like, hey, just want to get your thoughts on this. I've been working on this, would love any feedback. When in reality, I don't want their feedback because I know what I got is legit, right? So, but you play into their ego. You let them know like, hey, I am proactively coming to you. And then those are the soft things that you don't think are making a big impact, but those are what comes up in talent review and talent conversations. I don't want them to say, oh, Andrea is not ready to be a VP because she doesn't think proactively, she doesn't think strategically, she doesn't come to me with solutions, she just waits for me to come to her. All right. So again, you want to make sure you have that relationship and then play into their ego when you need to, but you also want to understand their priorities. That is probably the one thing that has gotten me far in my career and made it to where I started elevating really quickly, is that I would be the one that will go the extra mile in my one-on-ones. I want to know what y'all talked about in the meeting that was above me, that was above my pay grade that I can't get into. I want to know what your priority is. And I would always tell my managers, I want to know what I can do to make you look good. Like, I want to make your job easier, because if I make your job easier and I make you look good, then your boss is going to be thinking that we look good, and you're going to be praising me and giving me accolades because I'm making you look good, right? So tell me what's on your priority list, like what's causing you angst and what's causing you strife. And that creates a relationship, again, that's collaborative. It's two ways, because how many other times have we been in situations where our managers who don't understand what we do day to day go to a higher level meeting and agree to something that don't make no sense. And you like, wait, had you just spoken to me about this, I could have told you that's not effective and here's why, or it's not even possible. I ran into it with a supervisor that I had got. She was just crazy though. She joined the company and was just like, she wanted to be the HBIC, it's fine. Like, she didn't know I didn't want her job to begin with, but she wanted to come in and try to create a relationship with the president. And she, agreed to some things that when she came back and told me and was like, this is what we're going to do, this is the timeline, I'm like, that's not going to work. Systematically, it can't work. It's not me saying no just to say no. It's me telling you no because it's physically impossible with the system that we have. Now, had me and her been able to build a relationship and we have been able to, then I would have had that as, hey, here's what we're going to do. But she didn't. And so you never want to be in a situation where now you're either stressed and trying to make the impossible happen because you don't have that relationship, or you do something and you make it happen and it's not good or it's not your best quality work. And then now it looks like you've dropped the ball. So understanding their priorities so that they can help you prioritize your work and ensure that everything that you're doing is aligned to their goals is definitely going to help you manage up. And ultimately CYA, you want to make sure that everything you do ties to something else and it makes sense, because otherwise you just operating here and they don't see a business need for you. You're not contributing to the overall success of the business or the overall strategy. And if you don't start to have those conversations and understand how they're thinking at that level, then you just delay the timeline and the progress of you transitioning to that level as well. And then you also want to communicate effectively. You want to have regular communication. That's really the key to managing up. But then again, look, you got to be clear and concise and proactive in that, because sometimes they're busy. My supervisor is now in the C-suite. We got regular one-on-ones on the calendar. Are there times that she has to cancel? Yes. a lot, right? And it's expected. But because I know her, I know how she operates, I know what I can do to make sure that when we do get those meetings are great. So I don't wait for her to come to an agenda. I don't wait for her to create an agenda for our one-on-one. I create an agenda for our one-on-one as well. So she come with, here's what I want to talk about. Here's all the list of stuff that I need to talk about. Here's what I need from you, or here are the questions that I have. And so it helps make sure that, one, I'm aware of what her priorities are. Two, we're making the most and we're capitalizing on the time that we're in, that we're going to be. If we know we're going to come talk about this, then she can do whatever she needs to do beforehand to make sure she's ready for the conversation. I can do whatever I need to do beforehand to make sure that I'm ready for the conversation. And then, that way is definitely, it's effective and it's valuable when you're having it, and it's not just a waste of time. Communicating effectively also make sure that your manager is aware of your progress, your challenges, and your wins. I am not ashamed of tooting my own horn, because when it comes time to performance review, I want my bonus and I want my merit increase. So I'm gonna make sure that my manager knows where I'm at, what I'm doing. If I'm running into an issue, they're gonna know. If it's a challenge that I can't, even if it's one that I think I can fix, because I'm in a very high visibility role, I tell her, hey, just a heads up, this is what's happening. I have a solution. This is what I did. Just want to make sure you're in the loop in case it comes to your desk. What's the likelihood of it coming to her desk? Not likely. But what I would hate is for it to come to her desk and she's not aware because I didn't fill her in on something that could have potentially blown up, whether it's my fault or not. So definitely want to always be proactive and communicate your progress, your challenges, your wins, and whatever that looks like for you. If I don't get to connect with my boss one week, or it's been a couple of weeks, and maybe on a Friday, I just send a recap email. Hey, just want to let you know the status of certain things, right? Just let them know this is done. Here's where we at, or whatever. Again, you're doing more than what you really have to do, but ultimately it's setting you up and it's CYAing you before they can say, I don't know what she's doing, or she not making progress, or she not doing what I need to be doing. It also helps them cover you. So there's times when our commissioner will say, hey, where is this? She's like, oh, Andrea's doing this, right? It makes it easier for them to advocate for you and to cover you with higher level leadership if you're proactive with letting them know where you're at within things versus waiting for them to always come ask you. Anticipating their needs. Again, you want to know what would your manager potentially need before I send them this, right? So let me read this from a manager, from someone's perspective that's not involved in this or that hasn't been walking through this, step by step. What information do I think I need to give them, right? It's not enough for me to say, here's the issue, and then just walk with it. Like, how did I determine that this is an issue, right? What are the background data? And you don't have to always spell everything out. Sometimes you can just, hey, I put this report together. This is what I'm tracking. Just want you to see it. We use SharePoint a lot. I'm responsible for building out our DEI strategy. We've never had one. And so for me, I can do it and I got it. And I think I'll do a great job. However, how much better can I be if I give my manager visibility to what I'm doing and what I'm creating, so that at any given time, she just say, no, this is off, or no, this doesn't align. This, or things have changed, right? They're good for shifting things because of business needs, and that's the reason. And so I'm somebody that I like to be very transparent, especially on high visibility projects. This DEI strategy that I'm working on is not only going to be presented to the commissioner and everybody else, but also the board of governors, who are the owners of all of our clubs, which include people like Alexis Ohanian, who was a billionaire and Serena's husband. So it's like, whatever I do within this, he's going to see. And he has the ability to say, she's not the right person. She got to go. Trust me, they getting rid of somebody simply because the board didn't want them. So for me, it's like, what can I do to make sure that I'm doing this correct the first way and not trying to get too far gone and then having to circle back or get into a place where they're like, she ain't good. She got to go. So I'm actively CYA, and it's like it's built in me. I want to make sure that I'm covering every single angle so that if it does blow up and if it does hit the fan, they can't say it was on Andrea. Might be joint effort, maybe across everybody, but they can't just say it was on Andrea. How many people have managed someone where you didn't follow up with them, you trusted them to get whatever done, and then when it was time to either present, they embarrassed you, or they seemed unprepared or whatever, and you're like, damn, like I should have checked in sooner, or I should have did this sooner. So in that same manner, you don't want you to be that person in that seat when you think you're doing the right thing and you think you're going good and it's not. So definitely you want to make sure that you are anticipating their needs, you're communicating openly, you're being transparent, you're being proactive, you are taking initiative to identify opportunities to improve processes. If you're a recruiter, you should constantly be looking at ways to make processes more efficient, to provide a better candidate experience. You want to make yourself not only the subject matter expert, but you want them to know that, hey, I can also help you think bigger. I can help you strategize. I can help you create the direction that this particular team is going in. You want to show them that you can solve problems and that you can add value to the organization. Because when they sit down and they have these conversations about who's going to be laid off, you want to make sure that they say, yo, this person is legit. This person can do this. This person brings value. If we lose this person, it would cause an undue hardship to the business. So you want to be prepared at all times, be able to, it also opens up for you to be able to share your ideas and your managers with managers that you may not have otherwise been able to share. You also want to make sure that you're focusing on solutions, not problems. When you're, there's times when you do have to escalate. There's times when you have challenges and issues and whatever, and, you have to go to your supervisor and say, hey, it's a bottleneck or it's something that's going on. The one thing that I learned in my career that helped with that and that showed that I was trying to think bigger and think in the big picture thinking is that I always try to come with a solution, right? So it shows them that you're proactive and solutions oriented, but also it lets them see your thought process. So for instance, the current company I'm with, the way we book travel is outdated and it's not scalable, it's not efficient at all. And so I'm like, okay, this is trash, right? Or I tell them, this doesn't work for us. And here's why. It doesn't work because it's not scalable. People don't have access to this. It's not, whatever the case may be. But is it enough because I'm the senior director of people to just say it's not good and walk away? When I know that we're building out our new travel policy, I know that we're creating all this from scratch. So I said, hey, this company that we're using probably ain't gonna work much longer. The more people we get, the more terrible they get. However, I've already set up demos with this company. I think this one will be good. I looked at the cost for this one. I think it'll be very consistent with what we're currently paying, but their offerings are better. This one has 24/7 access. So at the time that I identified the issue, I also identified that I'm already proactively seeking solutions. And it allowed them to say, okay, when things go awry and when challenges happen, Andrea is going to help us find the solution for them. She's not going to just call them out and say, that ain't my job, that ain't my business, right? And so you definitely want to be able to always focus on the solutions, not the problems, state the challenges. But when you do that, definitely come back with, but here's how we can fix it, or here's how things can get better. And then of course you get their thought process on it as well. And then managing up also helps you manage your time effectively. Time management is critical in growing in your career, especially in HR. And that's because everything we do is so gray. Outside of the law and labor laws being black and white, everything else is gray. And so what that means is that at times we can get tied up in something that is all encompassing and taking all of our time. And then there's other things that are starting to fall and you're starting to drop the ball on other things. So you want to make sure that when you're managing up, you're prioritizing your work, and you're doing that by understanding their work. You're doing that by staying on top of deadlines. You're doing that by proactively communicating any potential conflicts that could happen or delays, proactively, not like when it's too late, or you're like, oh damn, like what am I going to do now? If there's a potential challenge or a delay, you can always just proactively tell them and say, no action needed on your end at this time. I'm just sharing this as FYI. And again, recently had a big on-site, brought a whole bunch of people on. The hotel was trying to play me. We was going back and forth. I was like, that ain't what the contract said, whatever. Was it something that I could fully handle? Absolutely. However, I also know that sometimes people try to get money off organizations. I'm like, if this goes completely left, then this is going to end up on my supervisor's desk as well as legal's desk. So it's like, do I tell them now, just as a FYI, this is what we're dealing with. This is the situation. I don't need any action from you, just want you aware. or do I wait until we get a letter where they say we're taking legal action? So based on this, I think y'all know what I did. I sent our head of HR and our general counsel a note, just said, hey, I'm really not feeling high right now. They're trying to play me, and I don't like when people try to play me. So I'm just letting y'all know they're trying to play me, and this is what I'm doing. And if I need y'all for backup, I'll let y'all know. Luckily, how you got their act together and realized that I wasn't playing games with them, and it went away. And so then in those instances, make sure you always go back and close it out. Because if things go awry, you want them to be able to see that there was a challenge and that you met the needs of that challenge, you found a solution, you close it out, and now you're good, business as usual. Again, helping you establish your value within the company and why you should remain there and remain employed there. By effectively managing up, it's not just about them, it's about you. You know, you can enhance your own career development. You can get ideas about stuff that's happening and you're like, oh, I can do this, right? Like when I was in a recruiter, I knew then that I wanted to do more than just recruiting. I loved recruiting, no shade to any recruiter on the call. I love recruiting. That's like my HR baby. That's how I got into the field. But I saw a bigger need and I saw that I could do more. And so what I started doing was in listening to calls and listening to my manager and asking them, well, what's coming down the pipe? What project, what are the pain points, and hearing what they wanted, I started to carve a way for me to transition from recruiting to talent management and HRBP, which anybody can tell you that is a hard shift. It's a hard getting people to believe that you have the skill sets that you can do that. I also tell people the reason I was a great HR business partner is because of my recruiting background. You know, the skills and the tools and everything I learned as a recruiter and being in a client services, type of situation definitely helped me in managing relationships as an HRBP. So being able to manage up and being able to say, hey, I know this is what I'm doing. This is my record as recruiting, but I want to sit in on this. I want to learn more about the talent management piece. I want to sit in on the succession planning project. I want to do this. I was able to enhance my own career. Could my manager have brought those opportunities to me? Sure. But was I going to wait? They knew that I wanted to eventually transition to the HRBP space. They were constantly opening HRBP roles. But in their mind, they're like, look, you're a recruiter, you can stay over there until whenever. And so I had to take matters into my own hands. By managing up, I was able to say, hey, this is what I want to do. I'm still doing my real job, but I still want to learn this as well. And then from there, I was able to advance my career and start advancing it more quickly. Managing up also helps your team's performance. There are times when I could get stuff from my supervisor and I say, okay, this is coming down the pipe. Great. I can then go to my team, my direct reports, and say, hey, I need you to focus on this versus that. For example, my intern, who is amazing, was doing some stuff, but I knew that the Board of Governors were getting restless about what our DEI strategy was. Now I'm only 90 days in, y'all. So I'm like, y'all got me doing a lot of work. And in that 90 days, I had to stand up and execute an intern program. I had to build out this whole on-site retreat and training. I've had to do racial sensitivity training for coaches and players and like all kind of stuff. And so I'm like, but in their mind, they're like, yeah, that's your job. So they started getting restless about when we're coming with our DEI strategy, where is our inclusive recruiting strategy, where is the documentation, where is this, where is that? And by knowing that they're starting to get a little antsy about it, I was able to then go to my intern and say, hey, let's pivot your responsibilities. I need this. I need these documents. I need you to focus on this. Here's the research, do this. And then that way she's able to help me look good and I'm able to help my boss look good. And then also contribute to the overall success of the organization as a whole. So you definitely want to make sure that, you're looking at managing up, not from a negative of, I shouldn't have to do this, but look at it as a positive. You know what? Not only am I CYA from in case somebody do something stupid, I got this covered, but I'm also CYA to make sure that I'm establishing my value for the company and to the organization so that when they start doing those start doing those layoffs, then my name is one that they're going to try to figure out a way to keep. Even I've seen it where they've done away with entire departments, but because one person was so good, they found somewhere else for them to go. You want to be that person. And the way to do that is to effectively manage up so that you can make sure that everything that you're doing is always visible and that your name is being mentioned in rooms that you didn't even know or you weren't anticipating it was going to be mentioned in. And then email etiquette. So everybody, we always want to send them emails, trying to get documentation, trying to get somebody caught up. And that's all clear and dandy, do that. I'm, like I said in my last job, I was notorious for emails. I used to ghostwrite emails for people because I knew how to write one heck of an email. And so tips for ensuring that you are CYA, and regardless of it's from a, hey, I want to protect myself from a layoff or anything, or from somebody seeing something or saying that I didn't perform well, you always want to use a clear and concise subject line. Why is that important? Because we search, right? Our emails. How many of y'all have been so frustrated that you're trying to find the email and you're using that search thing and the email is not coming up, you putting in their name, is not coming up, and then you finally find the email and it got some random thing in the subject headline that ain't got nothing to do with what's in there, or it's not easily searchable, or it's like a generic one that pulls you, you go to Google it, you go to search it and everything else comes up. So you want to make sure that you use a clear and concise subject line, and that subject line should summarize what the email content is about. Let them know what they're gonna read. Make it easier for them to identify and prioritize that email in the instance that it's something important that they need to look at. Also, address the person properly. I shouldn't have to say that, but all too many times people are misspelling people's names. It's 2023. It's right there in front of you. You had to type my name into the toolbox in order for you, so there's no reason for you to then misspell Andrea when you had to type it in and send it in up there. So make sure you're using the right titles, that you're using correctly, and ultimately that's going to also help your email come across in a more friendly and professional tone. How many of y'all have gotten emails where they misspelled your name and it's automatic a turn off because they've done it more than once? Now you're not even really worried about the contents of the email because you're sick of the fact that they're disrespecting you by misspelling your name. So you want to make sure that you always address them properly, use proper grammar and spelling. Again, we're doing shorthand, we're moving around, we're doing all kinds of things. There are so many ways to make sure that your sentence, your email is constructed in a way that makes sense. That could be using ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT a lot now because I didn't got lazy. I told you I could write one hell of an email, but now I'm like, well, I worked that hard, so I just write it up in a jumbled paragraph and I go to ChatGPT and say, rewrite this email, and they write it in a very nice professional read tone if it needs to be a read. And then I can then go back and, of course, proofread, but that's what I can send. And ultimately, you don't want any poorly written emails to give the wrong impression of you, especially if you're trying to advocate for yourself, protect yourself, anything like that. You don't want to limit your credibility because you sent an email that got grammatical errors or you misspelled somebody's name. And a lot of times we get emotional. Like we were looking like the Kermit who are writing emails, and we don't take time to then step back and go back and reread it. I always tell people, when you're in an emotionally charged state, write the email, get it out, because a lot of times they make you feel a lot better. But don't send it yet. Just sit on it. Because one, you want to make sure you want to send it. You want to make sure that if you want the smoke, you really want the smoke. And then you want to make sure that you've really effectively articulated everything that you want to accomplish in this email. And then make sure that by going back and rereading it, you're able to check off everything else that's on here. You're able to make sure that the email is concise and on point, and that the message that you needed to give is there. Sometimes we ramble in email, which, girl, you typed all that in and I still don't know what you're talking about. So you want to make sure that I don't like to say keep the email short, because there's always things that you want to make sure you include, but make sure that your main message is the focus of the email, that you didn't just include a whole bunch of stuff. You didn't just try to paint the entire picture. You didn't try to give full dialogue of everything. You're just trying to convey important details. You definitely want to stay away from using slang or anything that's going to make your message be conveyed ineffectively. And here's the thing, sometimes y'all probably might be thinking, oh, well, I wouldn't use that to, my VP, me and my coworker, we talk like that all the time. Yeah, but what if something happens and that emails get forwarded to your VP, or ends up in employee relations desk, or ends up in somebody else's desk? The way you've been talking, are you okay with that? So whatever you're doing at work, whatever you're putting in writing, whatever the email is, it should always be professional. Now, that's not saying you guys have to be uptight. Like there's times when my boss will send me something and I reply LOL, or haha, so things like that. Yeah, it's fine. But when you're writing an email where you need to convey this professional tone, and it needs to be, you want to make sure that your message is going to be received. You want to make sure that you're doing it very professionally, in that if at any given time, if someone, because there are times where IT will pull emails. I have had to pull emails between two folks to see what was happening. And, I've been shocked by some of the way that people talk in email. So just say that your work email ain't private, okay? Net, your work email ain't private. So make sure that you're doing everything you need to do from a work email perspective to make sure that you are CYAing at all times, even when you're not, intently doing it. Always, you definitely want to respond to emails in a promptly time frame. Depending on your job, I don't know what the expectation is. Some folks are in positions where you got to clear inboxes out by the end of the day. Other folks are like, like in 24, 36 hours is fine. It's also absolutely okay to acknowledge that you received the email and that you will be getting to whatever it is at a later time or whatever date. You want to set the expectation. Don't just leave people out in the open and feel like they should just be okay with it, right? If I get an email from somebody and it's like, I don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to work on this right now, nor is it a priority for me, I just let them know, hey, received, this is on my list to get to next week, happy to talk to you then, whatever. That's going to CYA, because you never want that person to then turn around and say, oh, I reached out to Andrea and she just didn't respond. Because then they're going to come to me and say, well, why didn't you respond to so-and-so? I'll be like, oh, because I was going to get to that at a certain time, but it's not on my priority list right now. Well, then why didn't you communicate that? So you definitely want to always communicate in a timely manner. Somebody said, I currently drop and drag emails in a folder related to the subject with the VBA practice. Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like I said, I'm very OCD when it comes to keeping things organized and being able to access things readily, very quickly. Another thing I would say is that always, especially when you're like, oh, this may come in handy later, PDF that email and send it to your personal, save it to your personal drive, whatever, because you never know when you will wake up for work and somebody chose violence and your access is cut off and now you got to take legal action and you don't have access to all that stuff. PDF in it definitely helps you establish a timestamp so that it shows that you didn't edit it. And again, there's times where I PDF stuff and send emails to myself that I never had to use, but I was ready if I had to, okay? So definitely add them to your folders. If it's serious stuff, things that if you're in the middle of situation, if you feel like somebody may be going to slight you, or you just want to make sure that, you're good, you PDF those and you save them for a rainy day, just in case you need them. And then the last main topic when it comes to CYA is managing interpersonal conflict. That is the professional way of saying dealing with folks at work that get on your nerves, that's haters, that your enemies. Shameless plug, if you haven't checked it out yet, check out our Managing Workplace Enemies masterclass, because it talks about this in much more detail and it's pretty hilarious, and you still get your SHRM recertification credit and you get to laugh at me. But managing interpersonal conflict or dealing with your haters and stuff at work is definitely critical in effectively CYAing. Why? Because we Black. We can't show up. As much as acting a fool may be warranted, as much as you want to be able to go off on them and call them this and give them a piece of your mind, at the end of the day, we Black. So we have to take the extra step to make sure that we're doing what we can do to protect our job and protect our income. Most of us don't come from wealthy families where we just have a ton of wealth and we're working because we want to work. We are also entering, again, an economic crisis where these jobs are not as easy to come by as they were, because the market is flooded with so many professionals. So whereas you could have got away with probably popping off on Elizabeth and them before, Sally may make you lose your job now if you go off on her, okay? So you want to make sure that when you're managing interpersonal conflict at work, as hard and as challenging as it is, it's important to always handle it in a professional way. You want to avoid any negative consequences as possible. So you want to make sure that when somebody repeats what happened and what the situation was, and your name is mentioned in it, they can't say, oh, well, so-and-so did this and did that. I had someone reach out to me. I get reached out for consultations all the time, especially from an employee relations perspective. And this Black lady, she had been working at this job. They were giving her hell. I mean, her colleagues would say stuff that was inappropriate. Fortunately, she here in Texas, she in Austin, Texas. If y'all know anything about Austin, then this is not too out of the norm. And she got fed up, and they said something about, culture and whatever. And she told the white person, y'all culture is cigarettes and something else. Like it was hilarious. However, she ended up getting written up for it. And she was upset because she felt like this person had been picking. And granted, after I heard the full story, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can see why you turned around and go be petty towards them. However, now you're the one with this in your personnel file, because you couldn't remain calm. She didn't follow these steps. So you want to make sure that in those instances, I know sometimes we want to pop off, they press our buttons, we get to a place to where we're like, you brought me here, but you want to make sure that you definitely stay calm and as professional as possible. Take a break. If you got to walk away, walk away. If you're in a meeting, you can let them know, I'm not going to address this right now. I need to internalize my thoughts first. It's okay for you to tell them, I'm not ready to have this conversation, because you are trying to stay calm and professional and avoid any consequences. So stay calm and professional. You definitely want to address the issue directly. Look, here's what it is. Here's what's going on. Be very specific, either with the person or documenting the issue. Make sure you have examples of the behavior that's causing whatever that problem is. Document, I want to say this is the biggest thing that I think people document incorrectly all the time. Documenting ain't just like I documented for I document, or I told so-and-so, or I wrote it down in my notebook. That's not enough. You need to have documentation that is foolproof, that is timed, that cannot be altered or anything like that. So you want to make sure you have the date, the time, the details of what was said, what was done, who did it. And then of course you want to keep copies of any emails and any other communication as it relates to that particular conflict, and then keep them in separate places. Keep it in your work stuff and keep it on your personal stuff. Again, just in case you wake up one day and they did a mass layoff and nobody can get into their computer. That happened before, okay? So make sure that you're always staying prepared and keeping your stuff together. So if you guys are sending questions about shifting from recruiting through, well, like I struck something, I'm getting all multiple things about shifting and making a shift from recruiting to HRBP. Black in HR has amazing career coaches, some of which have made that shift or who have helped people make that shift. So I would definitely recommend, my recommendation or advice is to get a coach. I had a coach. I just made a huge shift from HRBP in business to head of DE&I and talent. And I had a coach that helped me set up my resume, but also helped me think through the things that are important for me to make that shift. So my recommendation, I'm sorry, y'all, I don't have a lot of questions. I mean, I can't really give a whole bunch of here's what I did, but definitely I would say reach out and book some time with one of our Black in HR career coaches, and they can definitely help you make that shift because it's doable. And it's a lot of us in the group that did make a shift from recruiting to talent management and HRBP. It's all in a matter of how to say it, how to advocate for yourself, and then how to also state it on your resume. Okay, so back to this really quickly because we're running out of time. I told you I was going to talk until 6 o'clock. You want to seek support if necessary. Look, I always say don't just seek support just to seek it. Make sure that at the time that it's like, okay, I need to have either a trusted colleague, make sure I'm looking at this the right way, or I need to make sure that I'm navigating this situation very effectively because I want to ensure that my concerns are heard and addressed. That don't mean go be a snitch and go start snitching on everybody because you got a challenge and it's like, let me go seek support on this. No, try to handle it on your own, try to be professional, but in instances where you like, look, this could go really bad for me, then you definitely want to seek support, and then always try to find the solution and then escalate when necessary. Always document in writing. Always. Like I cannot state enough how important it is for us to document in writing from our perspective. It's not enough for you to inform your supervisor of a situation that's happening with you and a colleague verbally in your one-on-one with them, and then let them say, I'm gonna go handle it, and you walk away and say, that's okay, good. No, don't do that. Yeah, have the conversation with them verbally in the one-on-one, but when you leave that one-on-one, send them a little in an email and let them know, hey, reaching out, thank you so much for listening to my concerns and my challenges with so-and-so. I appreciate you, blah, 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 and regurgitate exactly what was decided upon in that meeting. Why? Because you need that timestamp, because if that manager leaves and so still doing what they're doing, and now they're spending and blaming it on you. You need documentation that you've already escalated this and you've already started to have this conversation. You always want to be thinking 3 steps ahead of how can I protect myself if this was to go bad. Somebody said, how do you keep business files personally? This can get us in trouble, right? No, don't keep files. Don't keep proprietary information or anything that you're not. I'm not saying go download stuff for work, but I'm saying if there is something that's happening, if I send an email to my supervisor and say, hey, this is what's happening, whatever, then you best believe I'm a PDF. I'm gonna save that email as a PDF and store it in my personal file because it's from me, it's my email, and it's not proprietary data or information. They can't sue me for that. So that's what I mean. I don't start taking documents from your job and trying to get people caught up and playing investigator and all of that. No, but when it comes to yourself and you advocating for yourself and protecting yourself, always make sure that you have those things saved in 2 different places. Again, because there are times where people have woken up in their jobs, had laid them off, and they found out via their personal email and their work email was logged off. And I specifically worked with a client who she had just filed a discrimination claim against the company, and then she was laid off, but everything that she had was on that computer. Now, can she go the legal route and, sue and depositions and get them to, yes, but who want to go through all of that when you should in good faith have your own stuff already documented and saved in a safe location as well that you could access it when needed. Okay. And then lastly, just want you to understand that, we mentioned CYA, and oftentimes people are doing that in terms of, from a negative or like trying to just be proactive for actions and precautions against yourself. And that's great in case something goes wrong. However, it's not enjoyable to do it, and is not something that we often think when we go into jobs. We don't go in expecting the worst or expecting bad things to happen, but they do, and it happens to the best of us. And so making sure that you follow these steps regularly, get them ingrained into your every day-to-day process is going to help you mitigate risk. It's going to help you build trust, and it's also going to help you protect yourself. There's so many good things that comes out of CYA that I wanted to make sure that in approaching this, I didn't come into it from a negative perspective where it's all about CYA, so this don't happen to you, that's bad. No, CYA so that I can help myself advance and develop as well. CYA so that I can understand where my gaps are and what I need to do to make sure that I'm closing those gaps and I'm making myself a value add to the company. So make sure that you're not just doing this from a negative perspective, that you're protecting yourself just in case, but you're also developing yourself and advocating for yourself. And this is going to give you the means to do all of that. So we are right at time. I have answered every question that came through on Zoom. So thank you guys for joining. Again, remember, if you are an elite member, you can log on to your member dashboard. You can access this replay. You can also get your SHRM recertification credit. And then if you are not an elite member, sign up. What you waiting for? And then shameless plug, my upcoming class. I'm choosing violence with that one. It's talking about the danger of inflated job titles. Do not let these companies punk y'all by telling y'all, hey, I know you only got 4 years experience, but I'm gonna hire you in as a director, and then they're gonna mess up every other job for the rest of your career, okay? So we're gonna talk about that, so be on the lookout for that date, the danger of inflated job titles, so that as you're in the job market and you're seeking, you're able to be smart about the jobs that you're taking and what you're doing. Will we get slides? Audrey, no, they will be uploaded on the dashboard. If you're an elite member, you will have access to all of this. If you're not an elite member, sign up, okay? Awesome. Wait, actually, I'm lying. We don't send out slides. You get one-pagers, but it covers all of this information. But again, you gotta be an elite member to get the one-pager that covers all this information. So thank you guys again. I will see you all next time. Bye.